with a missile, from the moment when the target is not completely disaggregated, but it's only destroyed or affected, then the trajectory is not predictable. So that target can fall into my battery and will destroy my troops. So these are the cases we are facing now. Of course, you are right. Using a combination of means to have the responsiveness to counter these type of threats, it's something that I don't know if there exists somewhere in the world. Nobody can predict where, let's say, if let's say the Israelis are using their systems against a rocket, and the rocket is hit in the air, of course the remnants of this will fall under the law of gravity, together with the impulse that they have due to the trajectory. So it's unpredictable. This is something that you cannot fight against. This is what I want to explain. And their work is thinking about using passive waves to detect objects in the space that ensures protection for our systems and also gives more clarity into the recognize their picture, even though it's very difficult using that system to distinguish between friend and foe, because you will have only objects in the air that are selected. So this is the main concern, that using passive detection when it comes into operation is raised for the air defender. So how I can distinguish between friend or foes within a passive system, it's difficult.
Sorry, if I may, about this, whether it's friend or foe, the artificial intelligence will most probably deal with that in terms of identifying what kind of drone it is, and then, but yeah, you're right.
But you are saying potential. Sorry, I just want to add something. For instance, let's recall during the Cold War, the best way to protect against ICBMs is to destroy them on the silos or on the place where they are. I mean, before they were launched, because appears some problem like you mentioned already. And I will add something else. Let's use satellites, let's use laser beams and some other weapons, I would say, that can destroy totally or almost totally this target. Of course, this potential is maybe an idea than a real weapon. But normally we need to think in the future, not in the past.
Okay, sir, I think we got your point, and thank you very much for your input. Feel free, Commander, just to ask you a question. Keep in mind we are late enough, so let's try to move as fast as possible. Thank you very much.
My question, great brief. My question pertains to the AI portion of it. What database do you intend to either pull from, or are you going to develop a database based upon 5G signals for the passive radar system?
The company we contracted is going to deal with that. So they will create a new database, but they will use the data already existing for sure.
Thank you so much for your questions. I would like to announce third presentation in another center, Joint Air Power Competence Center. The theme is Fight Tonight, Fight Tomorrow, Fight Together. Please start your presentation, Mr. Shifar.
Good afternoon, and thank you to our host for inviting the Joint Air Power Competence Center. And thank you everyone for speaking English, as I'm probably the one person that just only speaks English. Moving on, so you see a lovely picture there, and kind of that, there's the adage there that I pulled from the Royal Netherlands Chief of Air Force that I'm going to use throughout my presentation. So my background is a little bit different, as I've already kind of pointed out. I've spent my whole career being wary of, and then finding and fixing where the threat SAM systems were located. First flying P3s, and then the PA pictured with 4 Musca killers on the wing. Well, that's the US version. All right. The following presentation is open source and non-attributional to my nation or NATO. My ground-based air defense experience is depicted below. JEPCC's director, General Hecker, also known as USAFE, or NATO AirCom, has 5 priorities that I'd like to promote, as well as inform you about AirCom's inaugural exercise, Ramstein Flag, where those priorities will be put into action via operational experimentation in October of next year. And I believe the IMD COE will be heavily involved as the exercise is held out of Crete. I'm the JEPCC lead for the exercise, and I was involved in the weapons tactics development for what's going to be tested during the exercise. And it promises to be actually very good, and I think part of my presentation later will actually kind of help to illuminate what we're thinking, and it is about the Black Sea. All right. Lessons identified from the Russian-Ukraine conflict worth highlighting in the context of this brief. 1, the battlefield is transparent. Whether it's drones or commercial satellite imagery, if it can be seen, it can be shot. 2, move or die. Ukraine successfully demonstrates this concept and denies Russian air superiority every day and from the beginning. 3, 1 out of 5 long-range strike weapons get through Ukrainians' capable, proficient, and layered air defense. I think to the gentleman's point at the end, they all have some sort of effect, but it's whether or not we prevent the effect that they were intended to get to, and hopefully save the strategic and operational elements of Ukraine. This is an open source derivation. Their GBAT success rate varies based upon location and the inbound threat. 4, a mixture of sufficient quality backed up with large amounts of cheap capability is required to provide the concentration of mass needed to defeat the enemy. 5, attaining air superiority prevents the positional warfare we are seeing today. I think there's a bit of cynicism as far as whether or not we can attain air superiority, and I think there's a large amounts of discussion. Even the U.S. Air Force is kind of thinking it'll probably be attained more during particular periods or when needed. All right. All right, I think we've all kind of seen this slide, but I'll talk to it. NATO's current and future success can be summed up by the adage, fight tonight, fight tomorrow, and fight together. When the Ukraine war started, we vacated previously held operating areas in the Black Sea. You can kind of see a big blank spot. As the conflict normalized, we accepted some risk and are again operating in the vicinity of occupied Crimea. Enhanced air policing has demonstrated that multiple nations can deploy to Romania. We need to present a credible deterrence, but what does that deterrence look like? The limits of any operation are first determined by the ability to sustain that operation. Several squadrons need to demonstrate that we can quickly move forces in and out of the Black Sea and maintain multiple defensive counter-air orbits over several days. We need to find our operational limit. Sustained, cohesive employment of significant mass demonstrates the credible deterrence needed to prevent future Russian aggression. Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, Spain, France, US, UK, Italy, Greece, and the Netherlands are the current contributors to the Black Sea air policing mission, past and future. It is essential that the AWACS and ISR assets from those nations continue to regularly contribute to the recognized air picture and to their nations, all of the nations just listed, and to the CRCs and ground-based air defense units in the Black Sea region. And you can kind of see there's a picture of a number of ISR assets, NATO, UK, US, Turkey, and both maritime and AWACS versions. The US, Netherlands, Spain, and more recently France have demonstrated they can deploy to Romanian airfields and interoperate with the Romanian CRC. Interoperability is just the first step. Additionally, Italy, Greece, and the US Navy need to demonstrate they can fully support in an integrated DCA orbit from their home bases or strike group. Once we have proved we can sustain multiple DCA orbits, we have proven we are ready to fight tonight. To fight tomorrow, we need to continue to build upon interoperability and work towards integration, or better yet, interchangeability. New capabilities need to be procured with integration in mind. And so on the slide, I have kind of the Marine Corps' versions that they're looking to deploy. They've gone full rate production on the bottom 2, and the top 2 are still in testing. The SM-6 that is pictured on the top is in a container, and the SM-6 has demonstrated hypersonic defense against U.S. intermediate range ballistic missiles that flew at depressed trajectory so that they were at hypersonic speeds. Similar to the Kinzhal, but I think it was actually at hypersonic speeds when they intercepted it. New command and control systems and ISR assets ensure the airborne assets and GBAD have the same awareness. If we want better than an 80% interception rate, we need to employ a layered IAMD with electronic warfare, engaging the inbound threats closer to the launch point, simultaneously allowing our GBAD assets to employ MCON, deception, and mobility tactics, ensuring our ability to deny our adversaries control of the air domain. The Royal United Services Institute, RUSI, predicts that Russia will be ready for major war in 3 to 5 years' time. Roughly the same time CSIS is predicting China will be ready for war in the Pacific. We need to use the limited window available to procure the necessary depth of equipment, field a layered air defense, and demonstrate that we can fight together. The C2 systems in testing, command and control systems in testing, are built to be integrated fusing multiple data sources intended for all domains and components. ISR assets in space, the air, and on land are critical enablers for MDO and provide the indications and warning necessary to defend our nations. Hard to see in that picture, I'm sorry, it's kind of a bit far for us. But you can see there in the upper left is the air C2 system that Romania is currently using. There's the IBCS construct from Northrop Grumman, which in the picture, I like the picture especially, I'm not sure about the product because I haven't seen it. In that picture, they're deliberately showing multiple services, multiple nations, all kind of looking at a fused picture from multiple sources, multiple data links, and using different ways to get those products. And then on the lower right, you can see a Ukrainian MiG shooting a air-to-air missile to try to go after a Russian cruise missile. Gen 5 fighters and UAVs enable us to take more risk and challenge our adversary closer to the launch point. We need to continuously challenge any use of hybrid warfare, but more specifically in the air domain, not cede any airspace during escalation or crisis, while presenting a credible deterrence. Our future success in the Black Sea depends upon demonstrating fight tonight, fight tomorrow, and fighting together. This slide encapsulates the fighting together, and you can see there the number of nations and a rough idea of how many DCA orbits we're talking about, and kind of rough positioning. This is just a concept and just kind of meant to show the idea of pushing forward on the Russian A280 bubble. That's the end of my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you so much for your presentation. Very interesting, the subject. Integrated air defense is very important for to fight together. And the audience, do you have any questions, please?
Only one on my side. How do you see the continuation of EAMD plan or the integration of this plan into the SSP air plan?
Well, I'm trying to figure out how I can answer that. Great question. So I think what we need to take away, and one of the concepts I'm trying to push is ground-based air defense and any airborne asset needs to have the same picture, right? So we look at, when we think about things in the SSP or the RPs, the regional plans, the sourcing for all of the GBAD and for the air defense assets is pretty well known, and it's going to be basically controlled by the JFCs and then coordinated on air plan from AirCom. And that's kind of important, right? So AirCom being there in Ramstein, we'll call it JOA Center, is probably looking at, to what you're concerned about, more specifically kind of closer to them as they are under threat from Russia. And I do enjoy pointing that out to my U.S. Air Force brethren, that Ramstein is probably one of the first targets, if not the first target.
Thank you for your answer. Do you have any questions? No. I would like to, yes?
I am responsible with the questions.
Please, Kirsten.
I do remember years ago when there were some concept of using simultaneously satellites, aircraft, and radars. And normally, I think they still are used in this way, considering, for instance, Starlink and some other assets from the ground. But at the same time, we need some more in order to be effective. Otherwise, we have information, and what we are doing with this? We need missiles, we need also artillery and some other assets in order to combat all those targets. And against about lessons from this war, do we put together all these ideas, all this information coming from the area of operation?
I think probably two things worth highlighting there. There's a large number of space assets that are being fielded as we speak. You can basically read about a Space Force launch every other week of a small tranche of satellites that are basically going to go do a lot of the work required for the indication and warning. This depiction also shows, in the context of lessons learned, being able to operate in a comms-degraded or denied environment, where you may not have SATCOM, or you may not have access to Starlink because Elon Musk decided you couldn't have it. So this concept kind of shows how you could do it without space-based assets. But at the same time, you'd want to use space-based assets to make sure you have the earliest available awareness, as well as the ability to track some of the higher-end weapons.
I would like to announce the next presentation, lessons from the Ukrainian war, air and missile defense, by Colonel Bogdan Dumitrescu, please.
Of Ukraine war from air defender point of view. The agenda on the slide. During the initial invasion, the Russia's aerospace forces conducted intensive attacks on Ukraine's GBED using a combination of cruise and ballistic missile strikes and anti-radiation weapons. Russia's invasion force also included its largest combat deployment of electronic warfare capabilities to date. Russian electronic attack systems and aerial decoys jammed and confused Ukraine's air defense radars, many of which had to be taken offline and relocated. Despite these combined kinetic and non-kinetic attacks on Ukraine's GBED network, the Ukrainian Air Force managed to prevent the Russia air forces from gaining air superiority. This is a remarkable achievement since the Ukrainian pilots were significantly outnumbered by the Russian pilots who operate far superior combat aircraft equipped with better weapon sensor and electronic warfare system. Whilst these threats impose significant tactical constraints, the Ukrainian pilots quickly adapt their tactics to survive and remain effective in this high threat environment. Significant weaknesses in command and control compounded Russia's inability to gain control of the air. A lack of planning and preparedness coupled with procurement and encryption keys distribution issues forced many units to use civilian handheld radios and mobile phones instead of secure jam-resistant tactical radios. Russia's command and control issues hindered their ability to conduct joint air and land operation and make real-time tactical decisions in the battle space. Additionally, the failure of deconflict electronic warfare activities with the rest of their operations led to unintentional jamming of their own forces. The resultant confusion is disruption caused by this electronic fratricide led Russia to scale back its electronic attack efforts, thus enabling Ukrainian GBED to become more effective. The critical role of GBED was emphasized. A significant conclusion from this work is that well-developed GBED of both sides has been very effective in limiting the enemy's freedom of action in the air domain. Moreover, having just one kind of GBED or just few places does not sufficient. To attain the effects seen in this war, one needs both medium range or rather medium altitude and close range batteries, as the combination of two makes life hard and dangerous for enemy aircraft. Close range GBED has also proved necessary to protect army units against strike aircraft and attack helicopters and infrastructures against attack by cruise missiles and armed drones. Moving forward, although Ukraine has successfully blunted the Russian Air Force's low-altitude operations, Russian Sukhoi 35 and MiG-31 interceptor operating at high altitude have shut down significant numbers of Ukrainian ground attack aircraft using long-range radar-guided missiles. This threat, compounded by the presence of Russia's strategic air defense S-400, has led to a state of mutually denied air superiority. Russia has improved the effectiveness of its electronic warfare operations since the initial invasion, with considerable success in countering Ukrainian UAS. Russian electronic warfare forces have also attempted to jam NATO ISR aircraft operating on the periphery of Ukraine's border. So moving to the summarizing, I would emphasize the necessity of effective electronic warfare countermeasures and the integration of air defense with other elements on the battlefield, is in particular the Air Force. The high-intensity conflict in Ukraine has shown that this type of warfare is still relevant in these days, and that even modern conflicts in the future will not to be fought only in the cyber domain or with drones, as some predicted. One of the main lessons from the Ukrainian battlefield then is the need to build effective and layered and integrated air defense against all types of aerial threats in highly contested environments. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I find very interesting the subject lesson from the Ukraine warrior and the missile defense. The audience, do you have any questions? But I would like to very short or another example, I finally address your questions, please.
I have read some critics about the way in which Ukrainians use lessons, and not only lessons, the knowledge they receive from NATO countries. And let's recall that somewhere between 30 and 40,000 people were trained in NATO countries, not only in land forces, but including in this domain. And also they receive a lot of technology, a lot of weapons, and according to some of those writers, I would say, they say they receive including instructors. So, some of the lessons are not only from here, they were encountered in some other conflicts. And the question is why? Why they didn't learn? And just for you, not for me, because I am not in active duty, but you who are in active duty need to receive the right information for them, because we help them. I mean, they need to give us the truth.
Okay. Mr. Petrescu, you ready to start the presentation, please?
Because the time is
Very short.
fast, I will try to be very short. My idea is about developing a NATO Eastern Flank Air and Missile Defense. I had this idea 5 years ago. I started to study about this. So the starting points for this, for my briefing is, to me an idea. I won't speak about NATO system. We already know about this. System is functional and it has two major ongoing activities, NATO air policing and NATO ballistic missile defense. What is my, I will use like a start points, European Sky Shield Initiative, which is a plan, a project, a European project, which includes 19 European countries. 7 of them are from the eastern flank. Is missing Poland, but they still thinking we will see what happens in the future. It is an initiative that will propose to us a multi-layer defense with the following systems: medium-range IRIS-T system, long-range Patriot, very long-range Aero 3 systems. The plan for this, I will say, the European air defense system is that will be developed in at least 5 years. Moving forward, my idea is that like a first step for this initiative should be air and missile defense system in the east flank. Should be like a first phase, taking in consideration that Russia has the largest arsenal, speaking about ballistic and cruise missiles. Also, the invasion of Ukraine shows us they are able to use it. And more than this, like the third point is using of drone or military drone became challenging for all the AD systems. In my opinion, this system, like the other systems, should be a network of sensors, which are the very important, active and passive sensor, like we discussed before. The second, command and control assets, which should be able to correlate in real-time data and provide plan and solution for which is the quick system that can engage the air threats. And not the last, the weapon system, in my opinion, should be modular, then they should be connected between them. So, to conclude my brief, I will say that all the countries from NATO Eastern Flank should, spend the money wisely, and in order to buy air defense system that should be connected between them and create this Eastern Flank system. And once again, I emphasize the idea that should be like a first phase for the initiative, European initiative. That's all from my side. Question, please, if you have.
I have one question. Is this meant to be an autonomous system, or is it going to be integrated in the already existing IMD?
My idea is to be integrated, to be like extension for the existing systems. So it's like developing to the north the systems,
Okay, thank
air
you.
defense systems. Most challenging issue? To buy the system, weapon systems, and connect them in an integrated system.
We no. Yes. We have about 15 minutes and we now through a presentation. Please, next presentation, Colonel Bogdan Burcilă, your tema, please.
Why we should push forward the development on AMD network. Too fast. In the Black region area is a critical geopolitical and geoeconomical zone where Romania and other countries has strategical and economic interest. For Russia wants to have a military forward presence in close proximity of an alliance. NATO is interested in the sovereignty and defense of NATO members in Black Sea area, and Romania wants to protect its hydrocarbons and reserve together with the exclusive zone, economical zone and critical infrastructure which are located in the Dobrogea area. Russia invasion in Ukraine remind NATO that a potential conflict with a peer adversary was never off the table. However, it took a full-scale invasion by Russia, supported by Belarus, to serve a wake-up call for the NATO nation, for them, to decide to allocate the resources in order to reboost their long-time neglected military capabilities. Currently, both military system of NATO nation and NATO defense industry are struggling with the high demand of strength nation capabilities, while in parallel support of Ukrainian defense support. Some of the lessons learned from Ukrainian war was developed by my previous presenter, but in fact, this war demonstrated that the control of the sky is essential for successful defense of offensive operation. Air supremacy is never guaranteed for any of the parties. Air dominance requires a combination of airborne air defense and ground defense. The threats which was used in this conflict was created saturated attacks to overcome the air defense, for example, like cruise missiles and semi-ballistic